Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to another SIG CLI meeting. Today is April 24th, 2019. My name is Maciej and I'll be your host. And a few announcements before we jump to the main topic. So the most important date that is approaching within less than a week is the enhancements freeze, which is April 30th. If I remember correctly, that's next Wednesday. Oh, next Tuesday, actually. So make sure that whenever you're working on a new feature, that it has an enhancement issue filled in the enhancements repo, as well as a linked Kubernetes enhancements proposal with it. If you need guidance on the process, feel free to ping me or Sean, and we'll be more than happy to help you or answer your questions with regards to the enhancements flow. So that's probably the only announcement that I had so far. The test grid. So I've been doing the test on call for the past 2 weeks as well. It looks like there's some problem with GKE related tests. I need to have a closer look at it. I started poking at it earlier today, but it looks like a bigger issue. I think we need to revise those tests. I'm not sure if they are still they still make sense at all in the first place. So I'll be looking at it still. If you're interested in actually taking the role of the test on call, make sure to sign up yourself in our document. If I remember correctly, Sean agreed to do the next round of on-call. So Sean, you're still interested in?
Yeah. Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yes, I'm gonna put my name there.
Okay, can anyone hear me? I just feel like I'm talking, but I don't see any responses. So I started wondering whether I'm just talking to myself.
We can hear you.
Okay, I see, Nick, that you're talking, but I can't hear you. I wonder what happened.
You can hear me?
Okay. So let me quickly rejoin the call. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass the baton to Nikolai, since he has a topic with regards to kubectl logs, and I'll be right back to you. Hoping rejoining will solve my issue.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Earlier this year, we merged a pull request, which was submitted by me later last year, which allows users to follow logs from multiple pods. So basically, you can now, since the version 1.14, I think, you can combine kubectl logs flags L and -F. So basically, following by label is now possible. In my pull request, amazing thing happened. While working on the feature, I usually introduce bugs, but I unintentionally introduced another feature. So basically, the original issue was about allowing users to combine 3 flags: follow, selector by label, and -C, which is to select specific container from a pod. So it works fine. When you select multiple pods with the container, let's say container one. If container one exists in all of the pods you selected, it works fine. The problem begins when your selector matches the multiple pods, and you say, I want to see logs from container 2, but pod 1, for example, contains container 2, but the second one, pod 2, doesn't have container 2. Currently, kubectl logs just prints an error, like container 2 is not valid container for pod 2, for example. There been a discussion on the ticket whether to introduce an extra flag to allow users to ignore errors like this, and allow to, so basically -c now becomes a filter rather than something that allows you to make your choice more specific. So we basically have two options to go. One is like more or less backward compatible, keep the current behavior the same, but for users who want to filter, some kind of filtering by container name, we just add a new flag like skip missed containers or something like that. And another option is to skip containers, do not ignore the errors by default, and add a flag to error when the container is missing. So it's basically the opposite. I'm in favor of the first option, when we add extra flag to ignore errors. But yeah, I'm probably not the person to make this call, so I'm interested in the opinions of the wider group.
Sure. So I guess if I can weigh in, I'd be in favor of both, if you agree. So earlier, I think a few weeks ago, I made a PR introducing an ignore errors flag to the log command. So maybe we could leverage that flag to also ignore errors when multiple pods are matched and a container is also specified, but it's not found on one or more pods. So if you have ignore errors on, it could just implicitly ignore errors for those pods. And then we could also introduce an additional flag, to give users a wider choice to filter, on pods that do have the container as well. So it could be like explicit, filter, or implicit error skipping, depending on the flag they provide.
So when it comes to ignoring errors, it's always tricky. And the PR that you proposed, Juan, was about ignoring. And whenever we're talking about ignoring errors, we try to ignore the server-side errors. I would prefer not to mix the two, since it will be confusing. So I would keep the current ignore error as is without touching anything. The fact that we are currently allowing containers being specified with label is probably a mistake. Not sure. I can't think of an example where when you are scratching multiple pods and each of them will have different containers, and for a case where the two containers will actually match. I would prefer we do not allow this kind of specification, that it is an error on the kubectl in the validation phase, because eventually it might confuse more users. Even if it will be a breaking change, I think I'm more in favor of starting with a warning and information that in the future we will be making this a permanent error and going this path to fix the mistake that we've introduced in the past. If that was released, I couldn't hear the initial part of what you said, Nikolai. But if it was released as part of 1.14, then introducing a warning with information that in 3 releases we will make this a permanent error is better approach to fix this issue, rather than introducing yet another flag that will mix and match whatever and whatnot. From my experience, it's always simpler to be explicit with stuff like that. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it was released in 1.14, but it's not documented anywhere, or they do not mention it, so it's like undocumented feature. I would probably not even bother producing a warning, but I think I can totally see use cases for this. For example, you might want to look for your logs from all initial containers, and you don't care if some pods do not have initial containers. I can totally understand users demanding this feature, and I think those use cases are valid. So I would suggest that we introduce this feature, but we allow explicitly ignore missing pods.
So from my experience, it is always easier to add features than to maintain them further down the road. If I'm going to see a specific use case, a user complaining about the lack of that particular feature, then I'll be open to adding this behavior. Until then, I would rather we don't come up with possibilities for use cases, because trust me, I can come up with so many weird use cases. But I would rather we have simple code base that is maintainable, rather than full of features that are used by only a handful of people.
Yeah,
the API, yeah. So the API is there. People can always change it. This makes the code much simpler. I'm still in the process of fixing some of the old issues in kubectl, and I'm gonna admit that I feel guilty of admitting some small patches that are currently very hard to maintain because of consequences that they introduce by adding some additional feature that allow X or Y. So for that reason, I would prefer we stick with simple cases that are strong and that are always working. And going back to the fact that you mentioned that this is a not documented feature. Even if it is not documented, the fact that it appears in kubectl logs --help makes it a documented feature. So there will be users that start actually using it. For that purpose, we cannot break them from release to release. We need to go through the middle ground of warning. We can shorten the period if it's not documented properly, but we can't skip it at all. So we have to go with the usual API guidelines for everything. So you need to think of any single flag as an API, and we do guarantee API stability. In our case, the API is the flags are the commands, unless we explicitly said that this is an experimental flag, where we literally, by saying experimental next to the flag description, then we can break. That's the only case when we can break, because we clearly state that this is an experimental flag. and that this will be changing over from release to release. In all other cases, we need to ensure we can't break people from release to release. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense.
Cool, awesome.
Want to clarify something about making users complain about a lack of this feature. If you open the initial issue, which requests this combination of those 3 flags, it seems to be quite popular request. What do you suggest? We introduce this warning and close this issue and see if it comes up again as a separate issue, or how do we go with this existing issue?
Let me have a closer look at the issue. Well, given that we currently still have the option to, I think there's a PR prefixing logs from specific containers and pods, it should not be a problem further to process the output by grabbing through the containers that you only care about. That's not a problem. I can't remember the PR. Let me try to find it. There's a PR open that will allow prefixing logs. Yeah, that's actually your PR for prefixing logs. So eventually being able to grab the logs for the container is a middle ground solution that I'll be leaning towards.
Okay. So I will update the issue explaining our decision.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions to Nikolai with regards to kubectl logs? Okay, hearing none. In that case, let's move to the second item, which is KEP for moving kubectl to staging repository. Let me share my screen back again. Sean, you want to walk us through the KEP shortly?
Yeah, so this is basically just a KEP to say we're moving the code under package kubectl into staging. And the particular place under staging that we're going to move it. This is a first step in moving kube control completely out of Kubernetes core. If you look at the motivation, you'll see that there's several other reasons, including ensuring that we've completely decoupled the code from especially internal types, and to be able to use kubectl code as libraries to be able to include it into other projects, which has come up several times, especially with kube control apply. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and following this, when we do start to move kube control completely out, we have several other issues that we'll have to address in a different KEP, having to do with what are we going to do with versioning, what are we going to do with releasing, what are we going to do with testing. Those we didn't want to open up a Pandora's box in order to get this part complete. So this is just, moving this particular directory under staging. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I don't think it'll be, there's like I said, there's really not too much to it. So I don't really, to be honest, think there's too much to discuss.
Okay,
We're
if
gonna,
there are no questions, I'm gonna merge this PR right after our meeting because I'm assuming no questions also means no objections. And the topic of moving kubectl over to staging has been on the floor for more than a year or almost 2 years now. So pretty much everyone that at least once attended one of our meetings over the past 2 years has heard the topic of we're working towards that goal. And this is actually the first step to making it real, as in we will be slowly moving the kubectl into the staging repo, which will also allow us to publish kubectl under Kate's kubectl down the road, and eventually will allow us to fully move to the kubectl repository. But like Sean said, the biggest issues will be to address the release process, versioning, and testing, which will take us some more time and discussions with the SIG release and SIG testing.
yeah, and that's not going to happen for a little while, just because the last three items that we're trying to address still require some time and some work. Maciej, did you want me to send this KEP out to all of Kubernetes dev?
Yes, let's send it out, since this is an important topic that will literally touch every single developer touching Kubernetes repo. I'm gonna tag the PR either way after the meeting, but we need to ensure that the entire Kubernetes community is aware that we are actually doing this move, so that nobody is surprised when he sees PRs moving kubectl over to the staging repo.
Got it.
Cool. Thanks very much.
So just to clarify, you're gonna merge this before we send it out, or should I send it out and then wait
I don't think there is there's need. I'm gonna tag it right after our meeting. You can send the link to the CAP more as a information from the decision that was made during the SIG CLI.
Got it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any topics that they want to bring up for discussion for the entire SIG CLI?
Just an FYI, the dynamic command PR I sent 2 weeks ago, I think Sean and I are planning on merging. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it and it was on your list of things to do, now's your chance.
And that's in CLI experimental, just so you know. We're not actually, that doesn't modify kube control.
That is a CLI experimental.
Yeah, so I just pasted the link. I have the link open. I'm hoping to have a look at it either later today or at latest tomorrow. But per se, I don't have any objection to merging it. I'm aware that this will be a moving target since this is a first step at the dynamic command. So awesome work. Thanks, Phil and Sean, for putting this thing together.
Sure. Yeah, if you have any comments after, if it ends up getting merged before you are satisfied with your review and you have comments afterwards, let me know and I'll be happy to address them. Or
I'll just get my hands dirty on it and I'll do like I did last time with the book, just update it myself. That will even be better for myself, since I'll get my hands dirty and get to know how this thing works. And
No
Very
objection.
strong feedback. Are there any questions to Phil with regards to dynamic commands? Okay. In that case, let's quickly go over to stand-ups and well, Sean, kubectl independence and the progress that we have.
Yeah, so that's I guess the previous discussion was a good transition, the one about the KEP. So there's three areas, three more difficult areas that remain in order to, dependencies that need to be addressed before we can move into staging. And I'll just give a quick update on those three areas. So convert, we deprecated it back in 113. We won't be able to completely deprecate it till 117. It sounds like we intend to make kubectl convert a plugin to continue the functionality. I haven't done I haven't made any progress on the convert plugin front. The second front is printing with basically the human, what's called the human readable.go, the human readable printer. So I had a PR in order to pull that functionality out of Kubernetes core, but Jordan pointed out that some of the functionality is server-side and some is client-side, and so now I'm in the process. I've merged 3 PRs already to tease apart humanreadable.go into its server-side component, which generates tables, and its client-side, which prints these tables. And so I'm in the middle of that. I have a PR out for Jordan. It may be that we have to wait until 116 in order to get the client side. We're splitting it so we could get the client side printing out of Kubernetes core. We may have to wait till 116 for that. And then the final part is for kube control auth reconcile, which depends on RBAC code, a significant amount of RBAC code, which is in Kubernetes core. And the answer to that, after we've tried different avenues, is to pull basically all of that common RBAC code into its own repository. Jordan Liggett said he was going to create or started the process to create an RBAC repo. And I'm not sure exactly where that stands now. But those are the three areas. These are all very sticky points. So we've removed probably over 100 core dependencies, and we have about 7 or 8 left. And these last few are going to be problematic and require a significant amount of work. Or waiting for deprecations to happen, unfortunately. So that's that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks in the first place for awesome work on that one.
Thanks.
That is great that we are almost there. Nick, you had some updates on KUI.
Yeah, so I guess I can give you a little status of where we're at and where we're heading in the near future. One of the things that on my own fund, I need to learn some of the processes behind this going on behind the scenes, how we manage these kinds of projects at this scale. So I think if you guys have any pointers, just so I could sort of learn the ropes of project management in this space, how what the best practices are or the requirements, that'd be very handy for me, just so I could learn the ropes. Let me just share very quickly, if I can share very quickly, just to show you, give you a sense of where we're.
Sure, let me stop my share. You should now be able to share your screen.
Great, thanks. So Okay, so so I think in the near future, beyond learning the ropes of process of managing the processes and all that, our first goal is really stability. So I'll show you briefly. We have here's our repo. So as part of the learning the ropes and all that is figuring out how we should move it, what the steps need to be, who should be doing the diligence in terms of looking over to make sure we're meeting the minimum requirements, all that. That's definitely a first part of all that, of getting the ball rolling here. But in addition, just on our own front, we have some cleanup work that still needs to be done. As you can see there, we have, so it's a TypeScript project. We have reasonable type coverage for the core elements, but next few days, the goal is to really bring this much higher, the 75% number, much higher. So that's just goals like that are really our near-term goals. We know there's some high priority bugs need to be addressed. And one of the big things we'd like to have is just to give a sense of velocity and motion here to the project, is if we can auto-generate a table which gives us all a sense of our coverage, our test coverage and feature coverage of the kubectl commands. If you have any pointers there, I mean, I would love to be able to auto-generate a table, a matrix, which shows the tests we've run on various features, whether they're supported in browser mode versus standalone mode and all that. If you have any pointers there, we can take this offline, but of how we could actually think about auto-generating such tables, so we can track, kubectl releases versus CUI coverage. And then lastly, for the first rung of all this is improved documentation just for both CUI devs, but also for CUI users. We have content here, but I think we need some work. And then once we've sort of got the groundwork all really stable and solid and all the process management stuff in place, then we can think of moving on to the next rung. And I think this is very much where we want to open it up, to everyone. They should be adding, their desiderata to this list. We have some ideas in mind. VS Code has a terminal. We could offer CUI as a plugin. I think that's very feasible. We're not yet. We have a Monaco editor component as part of CUI, where we could consider incorporating a lot of the explain level information, the schemata, right into the editor component. We could also bless some of the editing flows with customized support. So anyway, this list is intended to be a longer-term list, but we can really start opening it up to the larger community there. Anyway, that's all I have. I just wanted to get a rough sense of where we're at.
To answer some of your questions, if I remember correctly from when we were talking with Phil and what Ahmed was going through with moving crew over to Kubernetes SIG repo, first of all, you need to get the agreement from IBM to give away the CUI repository under Kubernetes SIG, because if I remember correctly, Kubernetes SIG would be the best place for this. It will be coexisting with crew and other similars.
Okay.
From that, so if you have the IBM agreement, then the next step would be to create an issue. If I remember correctly, orgs, but Ahmed, he might be a better person to answer that question. And then folks from SIG release will have a look at your repo, because as one of the requirements is that all of the contributors to your repository has to have CNCF contributor agreement signed. I remember that there was an issue with crew with one of specifically was with an index, that one of the comments was not one of the comments author did not sign the CNCF contributor agreement, so we had to revert that particular comment and ask that contributor to reopen it against the new location. From then on, it will be an actual move of the repo under the Kubernetes SIG. That's more or less, in short, how the process works. I'm pretty sure that Ahmed, since he literally went through the entire process of moving crew from under Google Cloud Platform or over to Kubernetes SIG, will be the best person to ask and provide you with guidance over the steps. I know that both Phil and Sean, we were involved in the approval process, but it is actually that Ahmed did the dirty work for moving the repo, so he knows firsthand all of the steps.
So Maciej, I think we in our recent conversations with Nick and with the other CUI folks, we were imagining that was a step like a couple months down the road, that we would kind of check the process to see how well this whole thing fits together, how well the partnership works before kind of taking those more formal steps.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I guess I just add something to that, which is with Crew, we've been working on plugins for maybe 1 or 2 years, and the distribution, like the installation and stuff, is something that I think we wanted to have a clean solution for and fit within the scope of the problem we were trying to tackle with the plugin work. And so, Ahmet had been developing it and at least talking to me a bit as he was doing so and showing demos. And so it made sense, certainly from a scope perspective, to say this project is essentially completed work, that it was kind of something we wanted to have anyway. And it's written in Go in a similar style to, I think it is written in Go, right? Shit, I thought it was written in Go.
It is.
Okay, I was like, shit, I can't remember. I just blanked on that. No, okay, well, it's written in Go, so from an ability to maintain and drive the project forward, I think we were in a good position. Like the contributors of SIG CLI would be capable of continuing driving that forward. With CUI, it's written in a different language, and it's also something
different
that
platform. Yeah,
awesome,
I get
but
it.
it's not something that we'd already been driving in. So I don't think we'd be capable of picking CUI up and continuing to drive it forward without you all. And so for that reason, I think it makes sense certainly to say, like, okay, well, since you guys are going to be fully essentially responsible for this, if it's coming under the SIG where we would be helping provide direction and certain collaboration, right? I think it makes sense to begin collaborating in that way and make sure that we'll be capable of providing whatever support or responsibility we have as a SIG towards the sub-project before accepting it. And so, kind of roughly, I think what Sean and I had kind of brainstormed around was like, okay, like, what does the roadmap look like this? And are we on kind of the same page? And are we helping drive it appropriately and that sort of stuff? So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I totally agree with that approach. Okay, so to answer one final question from your Nick, one of the slides is the test coverage. We don't have any official test coverage table per se. We used to be updating a spreadsheet from the go test dash dash coverage. But other than that, we don't have anything. Maybe as part of the CI that is around Kubernetes repos, there is information, but I don't think that they are reporting or maintaining information about coverage for specific packages. Well, currently each package is a separate command, so that transitions nicely to test coverage against commands. Also, aside from unit tests, some commands, or hopefully majority of commands, has a set of bash tests, and on top of that, only small amount, but still will have a full-blown E2E coverage. But that depends on how much it is testable on each stage, because units, well, are very super limited. The test command framework that we have sets up a Kubernetes cluster, but only with a control plane, but there's no kubelet running underneath it, which basically means we can verify commands only to a point where you don't have to have a running pod. So all the operations such as labeling, annotation, and all that, or creations, they are tested in test command. But when you actually care about running a pod like port forward or kubectl exec, these are stress tests in the E2Es.
Okay. Is there a way of even just enumerating the commands for a given KubeCode release so that I could use that to drive some automated coverage?
I think that the Cobra command allows you to get the list, but I'm not sure if it's straightforward. I remember that I was hacking something around this because I needed a list of the commands. So it is possible to hack around some doc formatting that will allows to get you to get the list of commands.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, but there was something inside of Cobra library that spit me that kind of information that I needed only one, so I never actually produced any reusable piece of code.
That's fine. Great. I'll check it out.
Nick, if you reach out to me, I'll try to help you along with that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom.
And I just wanted to extend our warm welcome to the CUI IBM team. We're really looking forward to collaborating with you guys. It's what Nick and Paul and Menting showed up today. Appreciate that. And like I said, looking forward to adding this extra dimension to the SIG CLI. Really think CUI is a cool app.
Thanks. Yeah, this seems like a great team. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
So I think that we actually we could do a stand up for customize if that's okay. I have Jinfeng here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Jin Fang. I'm working on Customize. I would like to give a quick update on Customize. So several weeks ago, Phil presented the cap of generator and transformer plugins that we plan to support in Customize. So Jeff and I have been working on that for these weeks. And basically those features are available. And those are available from the head. So what they support is that you can write your own plugins, either as Go plugins or as any executable using any language you like, and you put them in a specific path. And when you run Customize, you say, I want to enable using Go plugins. I want to enable the generator transformers, and then Customize will look for whatever plugins you specify in your customization, and then look for that executable in the path. If it can find the plugin, it will run it and load the output as the resources. So a very typical usage is you can write your own plugin to download the Helm charts and render Helm charts, and the output will be accepted or consumed by Kustomize, so it can construct the REST map from it and can perform its whatever transformation Kustomize can provide. So right now we are about to release a new version of Kustomize, and before we have that release, we'd like to work on our documentation. So we'd like to provide adequate examples and documents to explain how this works and how it can work best for you. And we also like to have a high quality on those docs so that when we render Kustomize into Kube Control, we can reuse those docs. So if anyone is interested in contributing to docs, please let either Jeff or me know about that. We can help you get familiar with the feature so we can write very nice docs together. Thank you. Any questions?
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last calls for stand-ups or questions, topics that anyone want to talk about? Okay, hearing none. With that, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you very much all for attending, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.